Alright, time to review another beer. This time I'm going to review what's quite possibly Nova Scotia's favorite beer. This is Alexander Keith's India Pale Ale. Now, first thing I've got to say is that a lot of craft beer reviewers and a lot of craft beer aficionados identify the India Pale Ale type as its own kind of craft beer. The craft beer style has adopted a style of what is somewhat more historically accurate as to what an IPA is, where it's a very hoppy beer, lots of like caramel malt flavors in it, very bitter. The India Pale Ale style started in around basically the 17 and 1800s, back when the East India Trading Company was still around. The East India Trading Company, they needed, in order to provide beer for foreign markets such as India or for the sailors on aboard ships, they used hops as preservatives in order to make sure the beer actually lasted the entire voyage without going bad, and also was good when it arrived down there overseas. So in order to do this, they used the hops as a bittering agent. The hops originally actually started out as a preservative. Now, most craft brew IPAs are modern. They are newer beers designed to be more historically accurate with the original style. Alexander Keith's has been around since 1796, I believe. Does it say that on the can? No. Might on the back. Anyway, therefore, Alexander Keith's has got a grandfather clause. It's kind of like, if you remember hockey in the 80s, where you remember some hockey players played without wearing helmets. That's because they had a grandfather clause because they were in the NHL before the helmet law came into effect in the late 70s. As a result, Alexander Keith's is still using the India Pale Ale name long after the style matched it, matched being a true India Pale Ale. But I will evaluate it on that style, as well as the quality of it as a beer, which is a typical macro beer. I haven't actually had this in quite some time, so it'd be kind of nice to get reacquainted with it. Of course, it's got the traditional deer's head on the front of it. On the back it says established 1820. I just knew it was something like it. Maybe that's when the Alexander Keith's Brewing Company started. Alexander Keith brewed his beer slowly, using the finest ingredients, carefully taking the time to get it right. The result was a smooth golden ale with distinct taste. Today we honor his commitment to excellence, brewing his beer his way. Well, maybe I shouldn't get into it, but if it was really truly an IPA of the original style, then the brewed his way, then it would probably more resemble the modern craft brew. But whatever. Let's crack it open and take a look. Poured it in my Upper Clements glass. It's Nova Scotia something, I guess. Color-wise, it's got like a slight amber hue to but it's basically a golden straw color. It's almost a tad orange. It's not any distinct color except for maybe being somewhat orange in color. When poured, it came out with like a finger and a half of head. It looks like it's quickly dying off, and it looks like there's a fair bit of carbonation in that beer. You can see right there behind the horse. Yeah. See if you can make out the detail on the head. Larger bubbles. I do smell some of a bit of an aroma from here. Let's give it a sniff. Right off the top, the aroma is very faint. If I were to compare this to a true IPA, the aroma would be fairly strong. The hops tend to be somewhat mildly piney to floral. What comes out the most is, like in equal amounts maybe, is a bit of like a malt, pale malt smell. Smells itself is quite faint. Let's give it a taste. Comes with a little bit of bitterness to the back of the throat. Bit of a breadiness quality in the back. And the aftertaste. I get a little bit of what seems to be maybe a bit of sourness to the front. A pale malt flavor on the bottom of the tongue. Almost no hop bitterness. Don't get me wrong in saying this. I don't want to offend anyone. This is, if you were to evaluate this truly on being an India Pale Ale style, this is a really piece of shit IPA. However, a lot of people like it, and I'm not gonna, like masticate, or I don't want to find a dirty word. It's not really implicating any specific intention, but I don't want to rub the ego too much and say that this is an incredible tasting beer, because it's not. But I'm starting to get a little bit more bitterness in the back of the tongue as I drink it, but that really should have been more apparent. Is it a tolerable beer? That's what I feel wise. It's nice and smooth, and it's an easily drinkable beer. It's kind of like a pale ale, like a macro style pale ale, but with a bit of added bitterness. But it's definitely not a true IPA anymore. They use this name because they've used it as a marketing name since before the craft brew style of IPA came out. It's a gradual evolution, or de-evolution, if you may, of the original pale ale style that Alexander Keith made for beer in the 1820s. I imagine over 100 plus years that like 190 years or whatever it's been, its style has gradually changed. If I were to rate this beer based on solely being a if I were to rate this beer solely on being a pale ale or macro style pale ale, it's actually pretty good. I'd give it like a 2.5 out of 5 or a 3. But if you were to rate this as an IPA, it gets a flat 0. I'm not going to call this an India Pale Ale, even though it's legally allowed to call itself that, because it's not. I mean, if you're expecting a true Pale Ale style, India Pale Ale style out of this particular beer, you look elsewhere. But those who like it a lot, just like the commercials say. And if you like it a lot, then why not? It's not a bad beer at all. Give it a try. I think I might make my final grade on this 3, because it's definitely tolerable. Cool. 3 out of 5.